Lock us in, load us in, pop in that 8-track, spin the tape. Here we go. Hey now everyone, welcome back to a fresh episode of Star Wars Time Show. Not the proper one, but our Resistance Recap spin-off series. That's right, we're so big now, we have spin-off series. Just let that sink in. Anyways, Nick and I are here. Yes, Nick, still sick, but he's back, so we like that. He's here this week to break down the latest episode of Star Wars Resistance, which was titled The New Trooper, S1E16, I believe, at least according to Nick and I's counting system. All right, Nick, so pretty good episode, but before we get into our usual recap and review dialogue, let's go ahead and kind of analyze the Easter eggs that I picked out, or references. I mean, a lot of these that I've been finding lately, I would consider more references, right? Because Easter eggs to me are like, oh, there's an X-Wing helmet sitting there. Not so much when they reference something from the past. So really the 5 I dug up from this episode, more reference-y, but some good ones, some good throwbacks to the original trilogy, a nod to the new trilogy. Again, mostly leaving out the prequel trilogy, which was A-okay with me. Although Nick, for the first time ever, got one over on me, and he found an egg, a reference more likely, that I missed. So we'll go ahead and talk about that so he can gloat, rub it in my face, and tell me how stupid I am once we get to that part. So, Nick, let's go ahead and kick off the Easter egg breakdown, my friend. We had 5 in total. The first one, kind of, again, I had to stretch a bit. Hopefully you appreciate that, even though you've already told me I'm stupid because I missed one. But the first one, right, they're sitting around talking about the First Order occupation, and Yeager, being from the Rebellion era, the rise of the Empire, he chimed in with his 2 cents, essentially relating to Tam, who Tam is kind of pro-First Order. She's like a MAGA person at this point, where you're like, why do you like it? Do you really know what's going on? Just kidding, MAGA fans. We love you too, a little bit. Anyway, so Yeager's talking about how the Empire was very similar to what the First Order's doing on the Colossus, where at first they promised security, and that's why they need to land all these troops and war machines on your planet. And then before you know it, that security essentially means, oh yeah, you lost all your freedom too.
Yeah, it turns.
And that was the point Yeager was making the Tam.
It turns into a full-scale occupation, and you can kind of talk about this a little bit as a prequel reference and a original trilogy reference, because if you think about the moment where the Republic becomes the Empire, Palpatine's sitting there in the Senate, and he promises a more safe and secure society. So, like Yeager says, they promise you this security, safety, like you said, but then you end up getting what the Empire became, a completely, maniacal and tyrannical force in the galaxy. And that's what is kind of happening here on Colossus Station, is that, they came in 2 episodes ago under the guise of the saviors. They saved Torah from these pirates, and they come back and they promise to keep the Colossus Station safe from any more attacks like this and to ensure the safety of its people. And very quickly now we're already seeing them, acting as an occupying force and enforcing these curfews and everything like that, arresting people and silencing people. So yeah, I mean, there's some definite hardcore references and mirroring of the Imperial ways here with the First Order occupation of the Colossus Station. So that's a good call out, and I think it was a pretty strong beginning to the episode too, just to kind of get everybody's headspace around the First Order occupation.
Yeah, I mean, most people on board are starting to figure it out outside of Tam, who, when we get to the recap, we'll kind of talk about her and her love for the FO, and then it might be waning a bit based on some interaction she has with Kel and Isla. But on to Easter eggs, this would be a reference. Number 2, and this was a fairly obvious one. Kaz sees an opportunity when a First Order trooper gets knocked out He's gonna kill a bird or take out whatever that saying is. I'm
Kill
stupid.
two birds with one stone.
There you go. That's why we keep Nick around. He kind of balances out my stupidity, and he decides, you know what? I have to see if these kids have been reported by this trooper. But I'm also going to go ahead and use this as an opportunity to do some of my resistance spying. So Kaz throws on First Order Trooper armor just like Luke and Han did in A New Hope when they needed it to break the princess out of the prison sector.
It was a perfect opportunity for him to, yeah, like you said, kill two birds with one stone. Also, we get to see like weird, awkward, bumbly Kaz walking around in a First Order Trooper outfit and interacting with the other troopers, even with Commander Pyre. You know, he's in the trooper armor, so obviously he's going to run into other troopers that are on Colossus Station. He walks his way into what is essentially a security debrief with Pyre, and then all of a sudden has to give an update on, you know, how things are going. And he's like, "Oh, we stopped a fruit rebellion, and we
yeah, like he's like we roughed up some rebel rousers."
Yeah,
it's just
and then
no, dude, Kaz is, and we can talk more on this in the recap review. I'm really starting to appreciate this lead character.
Yeah, he's completely
he
different.
is not your traditional Star Wars hero. He's definitely become a Star Wars hero, but he's like a Jar Jar Binks / Poe Dameron / Luke Skywalker sans the Force type of combination at this point.
He's got a lot of different personalities in them, and they all work really well because they all come out at different times. You know, you get the heroic Luke Skywalker Poe type of Kaz when he goes out to try to save Torah from the pirates, and then you get the Jar Jar Binks type Kaz when he's in these situations where he's like unsure of himself. He's in a where he should be stealthy, and he's like, oh no, you know, he doesn't know what to do, so he's just kind of like.
Well, just even when he put the armor for the first time, just him walking in it, he looked like a ding dong, and then when he met up with the lieutenant and the other guy, he's watching what they're doing. They're like kicking crates, and then he starts doing it all awkwardly.
Yeah.
I love how they animate him. I love how he's scripted, and then obviously the guy that delivers his voice. He's a fun, non-traditional lead Star Wars hero. It's just I don't know how he's kind of in a category of his own. I mean, he's not your traditional. There's Rey, there's Finn, there's Poe, there's Luke, there's Han, there's Leia. It's Kaz.
Yeah,
he's really just Kaz.
He's his own hero, which is really something that makes this show stand out. So I really do appreciate.
Yeah, without doubt. I mean, if you're not watching this show at this point, shame on you.
Yep.
Give it a chance. Get over your anti-Disney bullshit or whatever the hell that is, or you don't like animation because it's not something you want it to be. Appreciate these new stories. I love the old stuff too. But I really appreciate the new stuff and the new stuff that is new. While also, again, I've always been one, hey, if you're going to go start something brand new, you got to just every once in a while throw in some named characters, and that's really what this show's doing. I mean, this show, I think, has worked because it started with, all right, you know Poe, you know Leia, you know the Resistance, you don't know any of these people, we're going to use them to introduce them to you, and occasionally bring them back in to remind you that they're all a part of this world.
Yep.
So, love the show, check it out. Easter egg number 3, this I am calling an egg, and I'm kind of taking some assumptions here. But when Kaz is in his armor, he gets onto one of the First Order shuttles, you know, the Kylo Ren ship, and he checks the data, all that fun stuff. As he's leaving, though, he runs into a ball droid, and the ball droid, to me, looked very much like BB-9E. Maybe it's his first incarnation before he gets his shiny black paint. But just like BB-9E, this little ball droid was not letting someone who looked shady go without a little bit of a fight.
Yeah.
So, again, I mean, do you think it was 9E, or did I just completely stretch that truth a bit because it looked very similar?
I was under the assumption that it was BB-9E, which was really cool. Good. So because I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, it's the TLJ.
Let's just run with it then. That's BB-9E, and it's just the animation. You can't really see gloss.
Yeah,
on it,
exactly.
So that's why.
It's a shiny show. Everything's a little glossy. But here is the one where I can say that
here it comes.
That I found an Easter egg that Matt may have missed. So in this little scene, you know, with the interaction between Kaz in the First Order Trooper outfit and BB-9E, BB's doing some calculations on the computer, and then he pulls out this little stick. It almost looks like a flash drive, and it's the exact same type of data stick that Poe drops into BB-8 at the beginning of The Force Awakens when they're still, in the village that gets destroyed by Kylo, Lor Santeca's village. And Kaz notices it and he's like, "Oh, a data rod. This is a data rod." So I was like, "Oh man, now we know what that thing's called. It's called a data rod." So that is the little Easter egg reference thing that I found.
He got me. I've lost my title as champion egg finder.
I mean, I got 1 out of the whole show. You got 5. So I still say that you're the king here, but I do have the ability to catch little things like that.
Right. No, you're right, and really, what makes it even worse that I missed it. In the end, we find out this data rod has a freaking star map on it, just like BB-8's data rod. So it's like a straight up Easter egg.
Yeah, exactly. So,
and I was too like goo goo gaga over seeing BB-9E or BB-9E not. That I just overlooked it. But Nick's right. There was a data rod in there too. So technically we should have had 6, but we only had 5. So moving on to 4. Pyre, again, this is the Gold Trooper. I mean, he is just an expert at being a dickhead.
Yeah.
Right? So he's in Doza's office. You can tell just making Doza feel uncomfortable. And out of the blue, he questions him about Doza's Imperial past, to which Doza quickly shoots it down. I still wanted to put it in there because we haven't heard anything further on Doza's Imperial past since we saw that he was an Imperial officer, I think even before the mid-season break. So it was still a good reference, and Doza just quickly shot it down like, hey, left for personal reasons, ones you probably wouldn't understand. So he probably left because we know deep down Doza is a good guy, right? I mean, he's not an asshole. He plays one because that's how most captains have to be when you're running a station the size of the Colossus. But it was just kind of touching back on this little plot thread that hasn't been fully paid off on yet.
At this point, too, I think it's safe to say that Doza is not the First Order spy that is on this.
Dude, I'm sticking with Yeager until I die.
Yeah, because
it's just they're making it even more tempting to go with Yeager. The way him and Kaz now have their little powwows.
Yeah,
it's just I feel like it would be masterful if they reveal at the end like ha ha ha.
Even if it's just like an unwilling spy type of thing, I think it may be a situation like that. But if it is that he's just straight up a First Order spy, that would also be great. But yeah, seeing these types of interactions between Pyre and Doza, and then also, I mean, even in previous episodes between Doza and the other First Order troopers, like when Von Reg brings Tora back, and that interaction between Von Reg and Doza, you can tell that this man has no love for the First Order. Like, he may be, allowing this occupation to happen, albeit, very, very unwillingly. But he is definitely not a First Order spy. Like we were, kind of being.
There's no way. I mean, early on we brought it up because they're trying to make it that way just because it's easy. But early on, I mean, it could be within our one of our first Resistance recaps. I went on record saying my money's on Yeager. I could be 100% wrong. This is a cartoon. I'm sure they're not going for like big time shocks and twists. But I don't know. It would shape up to be such a smack in the face.
Yeah.
To Kaz and Tam and Niku.
And Poe. I mean, Poe put Kaz there under, Yeager's watch, and then come to find out that he's really the spy.
I don't know. Like I said, I think that's a little too advanced type of narrative for a cartoon, but I think it would work and it'd be pretty spectacular.
Yeah, it would give something to us older fans as well, like some really deep thing.
There you go.
So,
yeah, I mean, I'm going on 39 this year, and I love this cartoon. So I don't think cartoons, yes, we associate them with kids, but especially these days, man. I mean, there's some pretty heavy cartoons out there. Hell, just wait until you have your own kid. I watched Inside Out this weekend. Fuck. I mean, you would have thought I just watched my entire family get murdered.
Yeah, I heard that was just an emotional.
That is some heavy ass shit, dude.
I can't watch those
heavy
things.
Shit.
Like Up, I can't watch Up. Like
Lego Movie too. I have a little sister. There's a real world plot thread, kind of like the first one. I'm not giving anything away, but fuck, man. It's like anymore, the older I get, cartoons are some of the most depressing, saddening, tear-inducing visuals I can watch.
Gosh, yeah.
And I don't know. I think a lot of it's because family. You have a kid. You think about it that way. But it's like, oh my. I mean, Inside Out. My wife and I, for probably the entire hour and 45 minutes, were basically bawling our eyes out.
Jesus, yeah.
Like she almost needed therapy at the end. I started like just working on toy photography just to like suck me out of depression.
Had to soothe yourself.
Yep. Back to the Resistance recap, and hey, like I said, cartoons can be very emotional. All right, so the last one we have here, Nick, it also involves Pyre, but as Nick mentioned earlier, Kaz gets brought to Pyre, kind of a little trick by his lieutenant to just show Pyre like, hey man, this guy's kind of jacked up, which leads to our reference because Pyre gives him a test, Kaz fails it, and Pyre goes, yeah buddy, you need to be reconditioned. And they actually have slang for it in the first order. They call it a brain scrape. So man, poor Finn, the shit that he must have went through. Anyways, so we get the mention of First Order Trooper reconditioning, which was referenced in The Force Awakens, in particular when Finn has his episode on Jakku. Phasma's basically like, hey, reported to me, condition this, checked out, blah, blah, blah. So it's just another reference, but this time to the new trilogy versus the original.
Yeah, it gives a little bit more context into how these troopers are treated as well. I mean,
they're fucked up. They're treated probably just like clones. Not probably. I mean, they're clones, but real people. So it's even more fucked up.
I hope we get some insight into this, into this process. Like, do they just go, like, say, they go to a planet like they did with Kel and Ayla's planet. They just wipe it out. Do they just keep a bunch of prisoners and then brainwash them, and then that's their troops? Or
well, I believe, isn't that there's a novel, I think, they had like those 3 little novellas or whatever before Force Awakens to kind of explain about the new guys and girl.
Okay, yeah, I think.
And I believe the way the First Order handled it is they would, I don't know if they would kidnap kids or parents would send them off or they'd hit up orphanages, but the First Order essentially would conscript their troopers just like the Jedi did with their Padawans.
Yeah, so as from a child. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, just take them and then essentially brainwash them. And that's why Finn's considered to be, a lot of people thought Finn was Force sensitive because he was able, really the only documented trooper to break the condition.
Yeah, but it seems like now, with this line from Pyre, that the conditioning is something that can either wear off or be broken, which is why they have this reconditioning thing.
Well, shit, man. I mean, their slang for it's called brain scrape.
Yeah, that's pretty fucked up. Like, that's some heavy stuff.
I mean, it's like they're essentially deleting their emotions, or they just like drop an operating system onto their brain for being a trooper, being obedient. Very much like the clones. I mean, the clones were tweaked as they're being generated to be submissive, take orders, not question their leads.
Yeah.
And it sounds like the First Order is doing something similar, but with real people.
Yeah, lots of dystopian future stories have told a tale similar where you have these people that are, deleting their emotions and then, trying to get rid of all of the bad memories and stuff like that. So really interesting stuff from these Easter eggs. All good call outs too by you, Matt. I mean, I think that mine's up there as well. Data Rod, but overall.
You like those rods.
Goldenrod. Here we go.
Yeah.
But
that's our boy. Speaking of goldenrod, did you ever see the Topps card of C-3PO where it looks like he literally has a goldenrod hanging out of his pants?
I did, yeah. I was like, oh, man.
It's like one of the greatest gaffes of all time that they didn't stop that before it went out.
Nobody, they probably mass-produced those things and they saw it, right before distro, and they're like, we can't scrap them.
Oh, fuck.
It's like, we gotta send them.
We just gave the droid a dick.
Yeah, we gotta send them out. And that was it.
If I remember it, people, if you're listening, I'll try to include a shot of the infamous C-3PO cock in the Resistance Recap cast post. So.
All right,
man, let's move on to that recap and review. So just to kind of reverse things a bit, we're talking about Star Wars Resistance S1E16, the new trooper. This is the most recent episode that aired on Disney Channel, I believe. You can stream it through Disney now. Overall, pretty good episode. We'll just dive right into it, Nick. So it starts off, again, showing the contentious relationship between Doza and Pyre, where, Pyre rolls in with his gang, Doza's in his office, and Doza's like, all right, pal, you guys got the pirate spy. It's time to get the hell off my station. And Pyre comes in as any con man would. Well, actually, someone helped the spy get off, so we need to find that someone, and obviously we know who that someone is. But it's just, again, it's just these little tactics by the First Order to justify why they need to remain as a security detail on the Colossus.
Yeah, it's his directive, probably from Phasma and maybe even higher than that, you're to stay on this station no matter what. Like, you don't have a particular mission other than to secure the station for the First Order.
We find out at the end of the episode, right? Yeah. I mean, we know why they're planning on staying and why they keep making up excuses.
Exactly.
I mean, it's coming.
So, that scene, again, shows that basically, Doza has no say in this. It doesn't matter what he says. Like, it's time for you guys to leave. They're not going anywhere. And then, this sets up the entire episode and how the station is now affected by this First Order occupation.
Exactly.
So next up, we get to see the two kids again. The kids, Kella and Isla, who were saved saved from First Order bondage by Kaz and other members of Team Fireball earlier in the season. After their planet was completely destroyed by the First Order, we see them again and they're fishing for flying fish, which I think is a very, pretty cute little reference, or a pretty cute little scene here.
Well, I like how the brother throws one out so Isla could hook one.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it just jumps right on the line.
Yeah, but before you move on, a note that I brought up to Nick before we went live with these two, Kel and Isla. At this point, in particular, their actions in this episode, I really think these kids aren't just normal runaway orphan kids. I think one of them or both of them, or they somehow share it, but I think they can tap into the Force. First off, as Nick was setting up the scene, they're out there fishing. A trooper comes by and is like, hey, give me your ID. We know they don't have ID, so naturally they panic. One thing leads to another, and somehow these two kids knock out a First Order trooper. I mean, the brother kind of whacks them with a fish, whatever. That's impressive in and of itself. And even Tam and Kaz are like, holy hell, you guys did this by yourselves? That's crazy. But we're going to get to another scene where I really think it hammers on that these two could potentially be Force sensitive, or one of them is, or something, because they're not normal kids. But anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, so we see the scene. They knock out the First Order trooper, and then before they get into any sort of hijinks with this trooper, we get back into Yeager Station, and this is where we find out about Tam's, I don't want to call it love, but she is completely okay with the First Order.
She would wear an FO, like, make the First Order great again hat if they had.
She probably would at this point.
There's no doubt about it. And Nick's right, because everyone, Kaz is like, man, this is fucked up. They're not here for security. They're screwing with us. We got to get them out of here. And then Yeager gives his Empire story that we told earlier. But Tam's like, no, I appreciate the First Order. I love feeling safe, and I'm glad they're here.
Yeah, and we also get a little bit of background on Tam, too, because she mentions, while Yeager is giving his story about the Empire, Tam jumps in and says, hold on, like, my grandpa used to work for the Empire. Like, he did it to put food on the table. He never hurt people. He was there just doing a job. And, I feel more safe with these troopers here. And that's all I care about is my safety right now. I don't know what their greater plot is, but right now they're keeping us safe. So from her perspective and from her history, all she's looking at is, are these troopers actively hurting me? If not, then they're okay with me. Which, I mean, is one point of view to take here, but obviously she's just not aware of all of these other things that, that Kaz is aware of, that Yeager is aware of from his time when he was with the Rebellion and seeing what happened with the Empire. So she's still a naive kind of younger girl here, and she hasn't really seen how a force like this can wreak havoc across the galaxy, like what will eventually happen in TFA and TLJ.
Yeah, I think it's a good point of view to have. I mean, naturally, with Kaz and Yeager being, team screw the First Order, it was nice to have kind of that counterbalance. You can never count on Niku for any type of legit opinion because, he's by the book down the middle, as literal as possible. Like we said, he's essentially Green Drax, right? He's the what are they called again? Klaatu? Is he a Klaatu or a Nikto? Nikto.
I don't. He was a Klaatu. He was a Klaatu.
Yeah, he's basically the Klaatu Drax.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, anyways, as they're eating, the two kids come naturally because they know that Kaz is the guy to go to if you need help, if you're in trouble. That's pretty much who he's become. He's definitely their savior as well as the Niku. And they decide, hey, we'll go help you guys out. And Tam comes along too, because Tam. There's definitely some jealousy on Tam's side for Kaz.
Yeah.
And Kaz's relationship with Yeager, and I think for Kaz's relationship with a lot of people in the station.
Yeah, she actually
you can tell that,
calls him out.
You can tell that Kaz bothers Tam.
Yeah, I mean, she calls out Yeager when they're having the conversation about the First Order occupation. She's just like, oh, well, you're just taking Kaz's side again. Like, no surprise there. Like, she actively says, like, you're just doing this because you like him more than me, or you're on his side. And she's not able to see past that kind of aspect of what's going on. But yeah,
again, I mean, they're also hiding a lot of stuff from everybody.
True.
So it's the type of shit you get into when you're a spy. So
yeah.
I don't necessarily blame Tam either. I like her voice speaking up and kind of being that anti-Kaz, asking questions just to give a different perspective.
Yeah.
So they all leave. They're like, okay, I mean, how much trouble could these kids really be in? What could they honestly have done? And then they open a closet and they're like, holy shit, they knocked out a trooper.
Yeah.
So that's where they decide. This is where the plan comes from after they wheel the trooper down to the turtle people land, right? I mean, it's like if you want to do anything shady on the Colossus, you just go down and hang out with the turtle people who are like the engineers or the maintenance dudes.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's where they hatched a plan, basically after they hear the trooper's radio go off that, all right, well, Niku's dumbass replied to it, so now we have to go check in. How are we going to do that? And that's where Kaz, you can see the light bulb goes off. He's like, I'll do it, and I'll make sure they didn't log the kids. And in the back of his head, he's thinking, and I'll also try to do some snooping. So, I mean, we've already kind of talked about that, but I like that, again, Kaz saw an opportunity and jumped on it to further his mission for the Resistance, while also helping others.
Yeah.
That's how this guy is. He's always going for the two birds, one stone approach.
Yeah, twofold. And obviously, Niku in true Niku style, like you said, as soon as that call comes over the radio, he's like, I think it was like, CB515, are you there? And he's like, no, we're not CB515. It's like,
such
what?
an ass, but I love him.
I know. He just like he puts Kaz in these situations to where he has to make these types of decisions. Because I mean, if Kaz doesn't do anything there, it's pretty obvious that some shit has happened to CB515, and they need to find out where he is.
Well, it's kind of like the A New Hope prison scene where Han's trying to cover over the radio, like, nah, we're good. Yeah. It's all good. And the guy's like, oh, you're not good. And then Han's like, yeah, you're right. Fuck this. Chewie.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. Reactor.
So, yeah, exactly. Yeah, Han's like, man, reactor leak. We got it all under control. Yeah. Just the guy's like, yeah, you're full of shit.
Like, okay, whatever.
So, yeah, very, very similar thing that Niku did, except Kaz jumped in, got on the radio, and like, oh, yeah, I'll come by, and I think my headset's fucked up, and you guys can check it out.
Yeah. So right after this, we get Kaz in the suit, and then he goes, basically looking for the other First Order officers or First Order troopers to like link up with him and get some information on, did CB515 send this call saying, oh my God, the kids that escaped are here? Did he not? And then also, he kind of wants to further his mission, like Matt said. He's trying to get more information on this First Order occupation.
Well, he was very spy crafty with how he got the info and where to go, right? I mean, it's like he kind of started some casual conversations with our trooper, like, oh, yeah, man, I still got to log my daily rounds. Do you know where we do that, or like where the shuttle's at? And he's like, oh, yeah, it's over here, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So, Kaz is becoming quite resourceful. He may be a dope. He may channel Jar Jar sometimes, but he's not half bad at what he does.
Yeah, he's figuring
he's
it
pretty good
out.
at spying, and he's batting 1,000 on saving people. So
Yeah, nobody's died on his watch yet. I mean, he's definitely figuring it out as he goes. He kind of got thrown into this, but every little piece of information he picks up or every experience that he has, he puts that in his mind. He adjusts to it. He incorporates that into his next opportunity to further his mission. So it was pretty good stuff here. And then during this walkabout he has as a first order trooper, in between that is when we get to the part where, like Matt mentioned, we may see a little bit of force affinity from Isla and
yeah,
Cal.
okay, I'm glad. I glanced over that. But as Nick said, so the kids, Niku, Tam, and the knocked out trooper are all still hanging out in Turtle Land, right? And the trooper wakes up and he's like, "Oh, what the hell's going on?" He's a little groggy. I mean, he's been knocked out twice. Basically, he's an NFL football player. He did not enter concussion protocol, and he was about ready to go out on the field until Cal and Isla kind of approach him. And again, I don't know. I think it was Isla holding his hands.
Yeah.
But as they're holding his hands, she's literally like, "Oh, relax. It's okay." And the dude literally starts to fall asleep until Niku comes behind him and shocks his ass to sleep.
Yeah, yeah.
So, like I hinted at earlier, I feel like these kids, or at least one of them, may have some affinity to the Force.
Yeah, and this is something that we talked about when the show first kicked up, maybe even before the first episode. Is there going to be any sort of Force-sensitive, Force affinity type of people within this show? And at the beginning, it didn't seem like there was going to be. Not even when these kids were first introduced. Like, we just thought that they were stowaways. These were first-order prisoners who were, for some reason, taken from this planet that was sacked completely. And now is when we first kind of get to see the possibility that they could be Force sensitive.
You know what I just remembered, Nick? Remember they had that little trinket with them that Doza saw?
Yeah.
And Doza, you could tell he
recognized it,
kind of knew what it was.
Yeah.
It's like these aren't just random Colossus inhabitants.
Yeah, these kids have some sort of meaning. Otherwise, the First Order wouldn't have saved them. I mean, like, according to them,
did they save them or did they escape from the First Order? I can't remember at this point. I think they escaped.
I think so. What happened was they were First Order prisoners, but when they got to the station, they escaped. So, like, right. so when they land, and then that's...
Yeah, I mean, their town essentially got Jakku.
Yeah, exactly.
Like little Lord Santega, wherever he's hanging out, where they wipe out everybody. That's what happened to these two. But as Nick said, they either were taken as pals and then got away, or they somehow got away. Who knows? Either way, they've popped up in some fairly key moments. And like I said, the way that they almost seemingly put this trooper to sleep with touch and voice.
Yeah. So
I don't know. It's a little fishy.
It was definitely interesting to see. So I'm really curious to see if they play on that anymore, or if they just kind of let it sit for a little while. But it was a good moment with those kids nonetheless. So the rest of the episode kind of is going to be more focused on Kaz here. So we jump back to Kaz. He finds his way to the shuttle to log his rounds, quote unquote. And this is where we have the interaction that we mentioned in the Easter eggs with BB-90 and the data rod.
It's a good fight with a ball droid. I mean, he does exactly what I would do if I had to fight a ball droid. And he kicks his fucking head off.
Kicks his head off, and that's pretty much...
And then he plays fetch with it. He's like, "Hey, you want your head?" Yeah. Throws it back into the ship.
I do like, at the end, he's like, "You dumb droid," and like the head's just sitting there on the ground. And it was a good little moment. So, we get that scene.
You know what else I want to bring up? I don't know if you've noticed this, but in the past few episodes, have you noticed how BB-8 is always helping? What's Yeager's droid's name?
Bucket.
Is it Bucket?
Bucket.
No, it's not Bucket.
Yeah.
Do you know how he's always like, it's all background stuff. Like, I guess it's probably because I'm always looking for Easter eggs and shit. But even the beginning of this episode, if you watch, it's like just random stuff going on in the background away from the main focus of what you should be looking at. But I swear to God, I don't know if it's been every episode or just the return from break, but if you watch, BB-8 will do something to help out Bucket. It's the cutest damn thing. This week, I think Bucket's helmet falls off, and BB-8 like goes and retrieves it for him and puts it back on. It's funny. Sorry, it's just a random thought.
I didn't see it, but I mean, it is kind of cool how they keep
an eye out. I'm telling you, man, anytime they're all in Yeager's shop, and those two are around, they're probably going to be doing something together. Either fucking with each other or BB-8's helping him out.
Nice.
Because he's like an old man, decrepit, doesn't even have like a shell.
Yeah.
It's funny. Like,
That's
just the random shit I pick up on as I'm scanning for eggs and references.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So after this is when we finally get to the Commander Pyre and then the rest of the First Order troopers. You know, they're giving what is essentially their debrief. But like Matt says,
Right, so Kaz gets pulled along because he's already starting to come off as a little wonky to his platoon leader.
Yeah.
So the guy's like, yeah, let's go. We got to go meet with Pyre under the guy. Like, he's basically, because I think he even says to Pyre afterwards, he's like, see, I told you.
Yeah, he did.
Whatever, 515 was a little fucked up.
Yeah.
But anyways, as Nick was saying before I cut him off like a jerk off, they get to Pyre's office, or Doze's office. How about this? Pyre kicks him out of his own fucking office.
Yeah, he's like, get out of here. I got work to do or something. Like, he says something to that effect.
Unbelievable. It's just like, Doze has got to know he's so fucked because he does not have a force to kick these assholes off now.
No.
As we've talked. So, I mean, he's screwed. But anyways, this is where for the first time, Pyre just, no filter, basically said, we're going to be bringing a full garrison here. The residents can stay, but if they fuck off, we're basically going to kill them or arrest them.
Yeah, that was some intense stuff, like, to hear.
He pretty much laid down that Phasma Company and we're taking this bitch over.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, this is said.
And Kaz is in the room again, so he's right place, right time.
Exactly.
His spy skills are working out.
Yeah, so, I mean, Kaz is there in full effect and hears everything and then is also called on by Pyre to give a debrief of what happened on the station that day. And then this is where things start to fall apart for him because in typical Kaz fashion, he starts to bumble a little bit. He's like, oh, you know, we quelled the fruit riot and we roughed up some rabble rousers, like you said, and all this other stuff. And then, like, he starts to, like, slowly back up towards the back of the room. And, you know, this is when he gets called out by the other trooper. Like, I told you, there's something wrong with this guy. Like, Pyre starts to question him. The other trooper starts to question him. And then Pyre says that, you know, what we put in the Easter egg, like, you know, I think this one may need some reconditioning. And that's when all hell breaks loose. So Kaz hits the button on the door to get out, starts bolting down the hallway. All the other First Order troopers are chasing him. Like a gunfight breaks out. And it leads us towards the end of the episode where it seems like they got him cornered. So you see this person who you think is Kaz in the full First Order regalia laying up against the back of a wall, and the First Order, the other troopers have him surrounded. They move in on him. They take off the helmet, and lo and behold, Niku, underneath the little walkway where they were, had switched out Kaz for the actual trooper before the First Order troopers could get there and secure.
Oh yeah,
Kaz.
the old quick change maneuver.
Yeah.
So he gets jumped on by his platoon. They're all like, "Yo, what the fuck?" And he's all groggy still, like, "Where's my green friend?"
Yeah, I mean, like, they all totally buy it too. They're like, "Man, this guy really is fucked up. Like, listen to all this shit that he's saying."
Yeah.
Like, so
in the nick of time, Kaz manages to avoid getting caught again. The end. So, not the end.
yeah, this is where we see.
We had a very key scene. I actually saw some people that review it were quite pissed that this was the preview clip that they sent out last week, and it ended up essentially being the money shot of the episode.
Yeah, the end of the episode.
Because as Nick talked about his rod and rods, and you remember he loves rods. Yeager and Kaz throw the rod in the BB-8, and lo and behold, what does it have on it? A star map. And the star map has a bunch of red dots, and they deduce that are these First Order fleets. And that's where Kaz is like, fuck, the New Republic isn't even close to that size. And that's where Yeager's like, well, if you look where we are and you look where all those dots, if they are going to war, this is a damn fine place to have a refueling station. And da-da-da! Yep. They're starting to figure out what we've known, but I always like that stuff where the characters in the show you've been watching start to get the big picture. Things are starting to funnel down towards what I'm assuming is going to be a climactic end to the first season. We should be right up with the events of at least The Force Awakens by this season's end, if not The Last Jedi. You got to remember, TLJ literally was hours after TFA.
Yeah, they did not have a lot of time
Hours.
between those two.
Hours. So, I mean, this show technically could also feature events that are taking place during the rat race through space. And it could live on. Like, if it goes past season 2, it could ultimately catch up with 9, whatever the fuck that thing's going to be called.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we think about it too, if we do maintain Colossus Station as the primary, location for the show, knowing what happens in TFA and TLJ, if we get to that point, we're going to have to see a fully occupied Colossus Station, because the First Order essentially has a vice grip on the galaxy by the end of TLJ. So if we make it that far, it's going to be interesting to see where our characters are, both development-wise and location-wise. Do Kaz and the rest of Team Fireball and all the rest of the inhabitants of the Colossus, at least those who are not loyal to the First Order, did they jump off and go somewhere else? Did they try to link up with the Resistance, or what happens? It's going to be really interesting to see.
Yeah, because in that mid-season sizzle reel, there's a shot of the Colossus fucking submerging itself.
It looked like there was,
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, there was some sort of splash into the ocean for sure. So
I mean, you could argue that maybe they're scuttling it just so the First Order doesn't get the resources.
Yeah, so I mean, initially when Matt and I were discussing this show pretty early on, we were like, yeah, they definitely have the ability to stay on the Colossus, but now seeing how accelerated the timeline is, they definitely don't have the ability to stay on the Colossus for much longer if things play out the way that we think they are.
Yeah, I mean, it could very well just be a first season thing, and then they float off somewhere else, and they're separated for the Resistance as they're running. I don't know, but we know the timelines are coming to a merge point.
Yeah, absolutely. We see that scene from TFA in the sizzle reel with Hux sitting on Starkiller Base giving his and then Hosnian system is gone. So we know that that's coming in the show in this season. So we're really close to merging these two timelines into one. So, but like you said, Matt, this is another strong episode. We're full force on the First Order timeline, or not timeline, storyline at this point.
Well, they can't stop now, right?
No.
I mean, you can't. There can be no. I know we're thinking about maybe they'll do one more one-off, but no way. I mean, after they followed the one episode up right in last week with Snar getting off, and now right in this week with more follow-up. It's on like popcorn. The First Order plot is the main plot now. At best, we may get some side stuff like learning that Tam likes the First Order, that type of shit. But I think the main focus is, at this point, going to be now, how do they resist against the First Order? Because even in this episode, we've already started to see some riots.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. Things are shaping up. I don't know how many more episodes we actually have. We're at 16.
So probably
if this is a traditional run, we got maybe 6 or 7 more, right?
Yep, 22 is typically what you get for half-hour full seasons. So
yeah, so I mean, there's more stories to tell, but based on that sizzle, we kind of know where we're headed, and I'm excited to get there. As always, if you're listening to this live, it means it's Wednesday. So there's a good chance if you come back to StarWarsTime.net in the afternoon, you're going to get the new clip share from the upcoming episode of Resistance. So make sure to set your browsers to Star Wars Time, not Stun. We don't use Stun here. We use Star Wars Time. All right, buddy, I think we have knocked out the new Trooper. Another quality episode. According to our rating system, all Star Wars Resistance episodes will never get less than an 8.
Yeah. You're pretty solid on your grading system. Anything that's below
I don't know.
an 8,
I saw some other people like, yeah, they didn't give us any answers. I'm like, what the fuck do you mean you ain't getting answers? I mean, yeah, as an audience member, we've kind of known some of it, but now the characters are getting answers. They're progressing stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know what you could not like about this. And come on, I'm a geek. I like this stuff. I'm not an angry critic. I'm not even a real critic. I'm just a fan that likes to share my opinion. That's how I am when I do my movie reviews for Entertainment Buddha. I'm not here to sit here and analyze dialogue and relate it to real life and what does it mean and is there meaning. If I watch something and I feel entertained, that's all that matters.
100%.
All that matters.
I agree wholeheartedly.
All right, Star Wars friends. Hopefully, if you fans, you know what to do at this time, and that is to get yourself subscribed to allthingsstarwarstime.net. That entails the YouTube, the IG, of course, the podcast. I mean, that's number one. And you can do all this very easily. StarWarsTime.net, top right, subscribe to podcast, or it's in the right sidebar at the top. You really can't miss it. We do appreciate you. We've been getting a little bit of feedback and engagement from the IG community, so that's encouraging and positive. So that's the type of stuff I know I'm craving. I know Nick is looking for it. We are humans after all. We just want some feedback. Are we doing a good job? Are you entertained, as Russell Crowe likes to say? Let us know somehow. Smoke signals, whatever. It works. We're listening. All right, people. Until the next recap, may the Force be with you, always.